think we can make a slow start. So welcome everyone, and thank you very much for joining this call, which is the third edition of the Future of Transport and focusing on accessibility. So we had two sessions this week, so one today and one on Tuesday. As good things come in threes, we will have a session every 3 months going forwards. So my name is Isabel. I'm the TRIG program lead at Connected Places Catapult, and the reason for me to present today is because this is related to TRIG, as we've just launched the new TRIG competition for the TRIG 2026. So if you can move to the next slide, please, so everyone can see the QR code and go to our website if you want to hear more about the competition and apply. But I'll give you a quick presentation about the competition at the end of the session, but just wanted to highlight that TRIG is open to any category of organization and any size. So if you're a scale-up, a startup, an SME, a charity, an academic, a large organization, you are eligible to apply for TRIG. So make sure that you have a look at our website and you stay with us until the end of that session. So moving to the next slide with the agenda, we are here together for just about an hour. You will see on the next slide that we've got quite a packed agenda. So we will start with a presentation from Emma Partlow, who is CEO of the National Center for Accessibility Transport, and Emma will be presenting what the future of accessibility in transport looks like. Then we will have 5 pitches from innovators that were part of the Scaling Innovation Program and also the TRIG program. And then we move to some very practical advice for innovators that never targeted the transport industry before, or even I think it's insightful for everyone to hear about the tips that Jamie, my colleague Jamie, who is head of strategic portfolio at Connected Places Catapult, will present. And then at the end, I will give you an overview of the TRIG program so you can understand what TRIG is about. But also I encourage everyone to join the webinar on Tuesday at 3 o'clock to have more detail about the competition and also the scope of the challenges for the TRIG competition. Okay, so without further ado, I'll hand over to Emma, who will be presenting the future of accessibility in transport. Thank you, Emma, for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And good afternoon, everybody. For those that need a visual description, I'm Dr. Emma Partlow. I'm a white woman with dark brown hair, thick-rimmed black glasses, wearing a black and white blouse with a blurred background behind me. I've got 10-15 minutes or so today to really talk to you about accessibility both now and in the future. For those that aren't familiar with NCAT, the National Centre for Accessible Transport, I'll give you a little bit of a background before we move on to some of the statistics and the data behind this. If we could move the slides on, please, that would be great. Thank you. So who are we? We are the only independent evidence centre within the UK, and indeed we think globally, focused specifically on accessible transport. What is our role? We're here to create rigorous, high-quality evidence and share that with industry, policymakers, innovators, and really bridge those gaps that we often see being present across industry, policy, innovation. And we're here to influence those spaces, but we're always driven by evidence and data. All of our evidence is always rooted in the lived experience of disabled people. Meaningful engagement is a really key fundamental part of what we do, and really making sure that disabled people's experiences and expertise feeds into all of our work programmes and the outputs we put out into the world. We're really fortunate. We have a consortium of 6 partners, many of whom you may be familiar with. Indeed, we work really closely with Connected Places Catapult as one of our lead partners. We also work with WSP, RIDC, the Research Institute for Disabled Consumers Designability, Policy Connect, and our academic lead is Coventry University, and we're funded by Motability Foundation. So we're really well placed to sit as a consortium and really share and comment on both accessibility now, but also crucially looking to the future. What I'll share is really a snapshot, and I would encourage you, if you're not already familiar with our work, to engage on our website, have a look at the projects and the resources that we have out there. As it stands today, there are various free open access resources that you can utilise on our website. There are over 178 tailored recommendations related to transport and accessibility that are there for the taking, to be used, adopted, embedded into your thought processes, your operations, your innovating and your organisations. There's also a resource collection that sits open source on our website. To date, there are over 657 resources, all relating to accessibility and transport, everything from policy papers, academic pieces, and high quality blog posts. If you're looking for something in particular, for perhaps funding bids, business cases, if you're looking to pull something together, it's a really good place to go and to utilise some of those resources. So I would highly recommend you taking a look. And at the end of my slides, there is a link where you can scan and go onto the website as well. But we'll pause and we'll really focus on accessibility as it stands today, because I think that's really important before we start thinking about the future. And actually, these things are linked. It's very easy to think about the future, but in order to get to the future, we need to pay attention to where we are in the here and now. So if you could move my slide on, please. Thank you. There's a whole load of stats on this slide, but I'll talk around them. You've heard already, what we do is produce evidence data that we seek to put out into the world to influence and shape accessible transport. One of the most striking statistics that sit within NCAT is that 92% of disabled people, so nearly everyone, experience at least one barrier when travelling. What do we mean by barriers? So barriers could be a whole host of factors and challenges that prevent people from travelling or make disabled people's travel more difficult. They could be attitudinal barriers, they could be physical barriers, so thinking about physical access to environments. Step 3 is the one that usually comes to mind for people. It could be social, and indeed they could be technological barriers as well, and digital barriers. So really important that we do focus on the barriers, and this feeds really nicely into thinking about the future. Because in order to have a future transport system that is accessible, we need to pay attention to some of these barriers now. If we break that down across modes and we think about aviation for a short moment, that's 86% of aeroplane users report barriers. Huge, striking number. 60% of boat users, 90% plus for bus and train, and slightly lower, but still really quite high, 77% for taxi and private hire. Why is this important? We talk about barriers and we talk about what might make it difficult for people to travel. And this absolutely is important. There are lots of layers to this. It's important because individuals are experiencing those, and that's not a good thing from a social value point of view. But actually people travel less often. So there's a real economic case here as well. And businesses, organisations are starting to take note and pay attention of this. And I'll come on shortly to some of the economic benefits work that we've carried out. But actually 79% of people say that they travel less often because of the barriers. So this is huge. If people are experiencing barriers and we're not fixing those, people will be travelling less. There's less revenue, there's less people across transport modes and less people travelling across the system, which has a real economic knock-on effect, which is of importance to all of us on this call, I should think. Linked to that quite closely is the fact that people experience longer journey times because of some of these barriers. There's a whole host of planning, often administration that goes into planning journeys and taking journeys and traveling as a disabled person. And 84% of people told us that they experience longer journey times. Again, that's a real problem, but also an opportunity, because we know that's a barrier, but that is something we can focus on in the future and strive towards improving. So whilst this might look quite negative in the framing, I would say absolutely these are barriers. These are also opportunities to move forward with and support on in the future. We come on to stress and well-being. It will be of no surprise to all of you on the call that actually barriers cause stress. If people are stressed, they're experiencing longer journey times. This all feeds back to the point that people will just travel less often. We know a whole host of evidence that sits within NCAT's archives and on our website, and what we've put out in the world over the last 3 years is that transport is not accessible in the UK. And most disabled people that we surveyed said that transport isn't accessible. And the score, when we look across all modes of transport, was 4.4 out of 10. So really quite low, quite a damning read and listen when you look at some of these barriers and statistics. And if we pivot and mindful that we haven't got long here, but want to really focus and look to the future with all of those barriers in our mind, we could just move forward, please. Thank you. There's very little optimism, and that's quite a hard read. That's quite hard to digest at 4:10 on a Thursday afternoon. Disabled people themselves are really not very optimistic about the future. Again, I think this is a huge opportunity. 44% of over 500 respondents said that actually accessibility will worsen in the next decade. So when we think about the next 10 years, people are not optimistic at all. We've got all of these barriers. There's lots of work going on, but actually people still feel quite negative about that. And when we look at that score, people's confidence in those future improvements, that was only 3.4 out of 10. These are really quite stark, difficult to digest statistics, but why is this important? Why are we opening this session with this? There's a huge opportunity. And when we think about how we can do better and think about a lot of the barriers that are in place, we're thinking about historical systems or processes that create these barriers. There's a real need to co-produce and co-design with disabled people. And that doesn't mean consulting, and there's lots of work you can access in our resources about this, and we've got a toolkit coming out fairly shortly around how to do co-production, so do look out for that. But actually bringing disabled people in earlier on. When we think about retrofitting and actually going back and having to make improvements, this is a rail example, but I think it's a really important one. Thinking about retrofitting at a station can cost upwards of £1 million. So it's often heard, and I hear this, in various spaces, it's really expensive to engage disabled people early on. Actually, if we want to look to the future and really dismantle some of these barriers and capitalise on some of these opportunities, we need to be co-producing with disabled people. Some of the best, most innovative ideas will come from working with, co-designing and co-producing with disabled people. People know what their experiences are, they know what their barriers are, so bringing those perspectives in early on is absolutely crucial. There's lots of emerging trends I haven't got time to go into too much detail on, but I'm sure you're aware of. But all of these are recognised as potentially throwing up a whole host of barriers. So when we're thinking about future and innovating and moving forward, there's a real risk that actually disabled people, older people, anybody with access needs is left behind. We think about the increasing digitalisation, integrated ticketing, smart digital solutions. There's a whole host of disabled people and older people that are digitally excluded, and there's a huge digital divide within the UK and beyond. So really thinking creatively about how solutions can ensure that people are included, and having those experiences, those inputs will really help ensure that technologies moving forward are inclusive. Thinking about journey planning, lots of new modes and technology, thinking particularly around autonomous vehicles, and of course the rapid increase of electric vehicles, arguably no longer future looking. They're here, they're on our streets. We did a whole project around streetscapes and some of the barriers that indeed these vehicles themselves to pose to people. So really important that when we're looking at future, that we're not actually creating new barriers. Important that we are recognising the barriers that already exist and working towards dismantling those. Next slide, please. So I've already touched upon this, and this is a whole project that you can access online, and there's a webinar coming next month. So if you are interested, scan the QR code on the last page, and I'll make sure you get an invite to that. The economic benefits of accessible transport. The transport gap, so thinking about the journeys that disabled people take versus non-disabled people, closing that could unlock 72.4 billion a year. So if you don't write down anything else for the rest of the hour, I think that figure alone is certainly a striking one. Accessibility is often still seen as a cost, but actually it's a real high value investment. And looking to the future, we really need to harness this and recognise the spending power. Disabled households, disabled people, and those around them, so disabled people's circle, friends, family, colleagues, it's recognised that they hold 274 billion annually in spending power, also often coined as the purple pound. There's some work going on, and it's likely that this figure is going to come out more in the region of 300 billion plus. There's no kind of finalised figures on that yet, but it's a huge sum of money, and one that we really need to pay attention to. So what's my message really to conclude this intro? I think it's really important that we look to the future, but we need to almost take heed of where we are now and use where we are now to really propel us forward into the future. If you move on to the next slide, please. Let's design things right from the start. Retrofitting is expensive. It doesn't work for anybody. Let's make sure that the people we're designing for, that we're innovating for, particularly when we think about accessibility, inclusivity across various transport modes, let's make sure those people have a seat at the table, that we're getting those diverse perspectives in, because what will come out at the end will be far superior. It will be meaningful. It will be far more likely to be adopted both by industry and consumers, customers, passengers on the ground. I'll be around for the rest of the session, always more than happy to talk to people on an individual basis should they wish to. If you just flag up my last slide, please. There is a QR code, my email, the NCAT website. Do get in touch, because we've got lots coming out, and we'd love to hear from you, and certainly for you to be closer to our work. There's loads we could talk about. Sadly, I don't have the time. So I'll pause there and hand back over. But thank you for allowing me to open this, and hopefully there's lots of thinking that people are doing on the back of those statistics. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emma, for setting the scene, and hopefully hearing all those great innovation, people will feel more optimistic about the future. So if we can move to the next slide. And then I'll hand over to Supersmith to present a solution.
Hello, thank you, Isabel, and thank you, Emma. So my name is Tom Morgan. I am Chief Exec and co-founder of Supersmith, white male with short hair and glasses, blurred background. And so the problem that we're solving, that we're going to talk about today, is improving inclusion in shared micromobility. So shared micromobility, you might recognise as the bikes that are in this picture here, or the e-scooters that perhaps are on your streets. And the fact is, whilst there's teething issues with this mode of transport, it is very popular in general. It is expanding in the UK with the pilots, but also in most cities, or many cities around the world. It is a affordable, low carbon, low congestion form of transport that gives increased access to a large proportion of people in cities and urban environments. But the fact is that none of these vehicles are accessible to a wide range of people, including disabled people. And this is a particular passion of mine and ours at Supersmith. We're bringing to market a new type of mobility scooter. It has a secret magic power, which is a three-wheel electric vehicle, but it has robotic technology that means it leans into corners if you are going too quickly. It self-stabilizes if you go over uneven ground, and therefore it is safer. And a safer vehicle is one that is needed, because traditional mobility scooters are really dangerous and they do tip over. The benefit of being more stable is we can sit people higher and give them a better experience, and it has many other benefits that means it can fit as part of a shared scooter scheme. And so working with the National Centre for Accessible Transport, Como UK, TRL and Wheels for Wellbeing, we ran a study and a co-production exercise with a range of disabled people to understand how they would use a vehicle like this to give them access to the cities where they live, and also to kind of understand the wider requirements of what a shared micromobility scheme would look like if it is to be truly accessible. We learned a huge amount, and the headline is that it was considered safe, accessible, desirable, and in fact fun by many of the people that came and kind of helped us with the trials. And 100% of the people that were part of the trial said they would use the 3-scooter in a shared scooter environment. So a kind of a reason for optimism. I'm sure there's many other reasons through these conversations as well. I think if we go to the next slide. There's very small text, but just to give you an update of where we are. So since the end of that trial, we've been we've agreed a partnership with a large shared mobility operator to kind of pilot and test our vehicle in those in their trials. I can see the time's up. We're also looking to do a big trial at the Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park. We're waiting for a response on a grant for that. And we've had Prince William on our scooter and gave a test ride. So I'm 20 seconds over. If you want to talk to us, please do. We're keen to find anyone that is interested in this subject. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Tom. Can we go to the next slide, please? So we will hear from the Pocket Solution. Hand over to Mark.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mark Hayward, and I am the founder of Pocket. And we've recently been part of the TRIG program, just the previous one. Next slide, please. So we identified the challenge, and then most train apps are simple workflows. You go on there, you try and book a ticket, you find the right ticket for you, whether it's single, advanced, or a daytime ticket. You check out, you've got your ticket. But what about asking a question? There's many times I want to ask a question, especially around accessibility. Is a station wheelchair accessible? Is someone there to meet me at the other end? When I arrive at a station, can I access a bus if I have certain needs? Is there toilet information? All these different questions you might want to ask about your journey that you can't just ask if you're using a standard app, either a commercial train app or one from the top. So we took a load of different data feeds, including data from the TfL, National Rail, the Rail Data website, accessibility information, bus information, and we took in a lot of data from OpenStreetMaps, combined it all together into a processing engine so we can plan end-to-end journeys, including all the other information you may need as part of your journey, not just using a ticket. And then we produce that data as part of an LLM via our application, a web-based application, using voice, so you can talk to it and receive answers back using audio. Or if you were walking up to a kiosk inside a station, you'd be able to talk to it using video as well. Next slide, please. So thanks to TRIG, we've gone from idea phase, or a very, very small proof of concept, to an MVP, which is now available. And if you would like to try it out, you can go to chat.travelwithpocket.com for the chat interface. There's also the video interface on that URL there. We are now working with Transport for Wales as part of their accelerator, and it's a really exciting opportunity that wouldn't have been possible without TRIG, because we've taken our MVP there and we're speaking to various different departments inside Transport for Wales, including customer services, the languages team, because Transport for Wales must provide all services in English and Welsh. And they also host a lot of big events in Cardiff, such as the Euros that's coming up, and they're speaking to us about how we could use Pocket to provide information in languages of nations that are going to be visiting during the Euros. So it's really exciting to be working with them. They're also taking over all of the bus services in Wales as well. So they are multimodal, which is something that you don't get from their standard apps. But because we're pulling in so many different data feeds, we are basically a ticket office in your pocket for rail, bus and walking. And finally, we are part of the Barclays Eagle Labs Investment Accelerator now, and we're actively trying to raise more money to go further and faster.
Great. Thank you very much, Mark. And now I pass on to Abhi, who's founder at Ostrom Tech Limited.
Thank you. So I'm Abhi Chacko, founder of Ostrom Tech Limited. I founded this company in 2020, and then we received a grant from Trig as part of our journey. And the purpose of the company is to actually address the accessibility challenges in airports or in aviation, so improve the assisted travel. At the moment, about 1% of the passengers who go through the airport require extra support, and the process of booking that assistance service is not that straightforward. You can only indicate the type of disability when you book the ticket through the airline website. You can't say when you will come to the airport, how many bags you have, whether you have a carer with you, and also when you actually reach the airport, it is again clunky to actually engage with the assistance team. There is no way to provide the feedback at the end of the journey, etc. So we've addressed that challenge by creating a multi-stakeholder platform, which we call it Ostrom. But the important thing for the passenger is a Uber-like app, which they can use to book for assistance as well as engage with the assistance team when they come to the airport. They can chat with the assistance agent, they can see where the agent is, they can provide feedback at the end of the journey. And it also encourages passengers to do more on their own as independent travel, because they always have the safety net as an app in their pocket when they go through the airport. Next step, next slide, please. Next slide. So this is our journey in short. So we got the Trig grant in 2021. Our overall operational platform for managing assistance at airport went live in March 2022. We then went live at Gatwick in 2023. Overall, multiple airports, including JFK Terminal 1 by March 2026. And Purple Door, which is the app which is facing the passenger, giving them the full breadth of the experience, is now live and in Santiago Airport in Chile. So the challenges that, or the opportunities or the challenges, we are the first multi-stakeholder assisted travel platform, meaning at an airport, everything is, things are managed by multiple parties, the airline, airport ground handler, the assistance team, as well as the passenger. So our platform brings all these parties together to enable a smooth experience for the passenger. We've already put in more than 100 man years of effort in building this platform. It's live at 5 airports. And we've enabled some free tools for passengers and airports in the UK. We call it Purple Door Lite, which is a lighter version of Purple Door with limited functionality that's free for UK airports. Purple Profile is a tool, or it's a profile that the passenger can create, which hold all their assistance requirements, including wheelchair details, and they can easily share it by sharing a QR code or making a booking through Purple Door. Yeah, so at the moment we are looking to expand our platform to other airports, as well as receiving grants for extending the capability further. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Abhi. And now moving to Tracker Solution.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Freddy Nonyelu, and I'm founder and CEO at Sharp Blue. We've built Tracker on top of the Bright Yellow Brightway app to be the first spatial intelligence platform that transforms transport accessibility from a compliance obligation into a real-time operational performance metric with measurable financial impact. So first of all, across the UK, we know transport operators are spending millions on accessibility upgrades, but they're doing it with almost no real data, and decisions are driven by audits and assumptions and complaints, not by live evidence. And that leads to 3 systemic problems. If you can click through the next 3 bullets, please. If you can click through, thank you. So the first one is the misallocated capital. So money spent in the wrong places. There's the operational inefficiency with staff reacting to issues instead of anticipating them. And there's clearly the passenger dissatisfaction, especially among disabled and older travelers. So we conclude that this is a data problem, and Tracker is the first platform that will solve it at scale. Next slide, please. Okay, so our solution is a live digital twin of every station in the network. We model step-free routes, real-time accessibility scores, and the use predictive analytics to identify risks, whether they be lift failures, pinch points, or crowding, before they impact passengers. And that gives governments and operators something they've not had before. If you can click through the next bullet points, please, on this slide. Thank you. So the first is that's it there. That's the first is a network-wide real-time view of accessibility, a quantifiable metric of inclusive mobility, a data backbone, and a predictive layer that reduces operational disruption. So it's not just an app. That's clear. It's an infrastructure level intelligence system for the future of transport. Next slide, please. So where are we so far? We've proven it with Transport for Wales. Tracker was live in 6 rail stations and 1 bus station. Other pilots with West Midland Train and Transport for West Midland increased coverage to 11 stations. We've been endorsed by independent virtual and impaired testing community. 60% of older disabled passengers tested it as part of the DAI project, and they said they gained confidence and independence using the guidance system. So we're not looking, this is not a pilot. This is a validated product that has potential for national scale with a national scale customer in Transport for Wales, and a clear path to expansion. Next slide, please. So what's our ask? We're seeking investment to scale Tracker across the entire Transport for Wales network over the next 12 months, and this includes expansion. This expansion includes deep coverage in their major stations, light touch mapping across all their remaining stations, network-wide accessibility scoring, predictive analytics for the operator, and a national dashboard for both Transport for Wales and the Welsh Government. So this is the first national accessibility intelligence system in the UK, and we're hoping that this will become a flagship for and a reference model for every other transport authority. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Freddie. And now, last but not least, solution developed within the Scaling Innovation Program. So I pass on to the Disability Policy Centre.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Chloe Shender-Wilson, and I'm one of the founders of the Disability Policy Centre. And yeah, as I said, our Street Transformation Execution Programme was developed in a Scaling Innovation cohort just last year. Next slide, please. So the issue that we sought to be able to fix is that street access is a huge barrier for disabled people. So NCAT Streetscapes research identified that nearly 70% of disabled people have identified problems with street access when walking, wheeling, or scootering. And we know this is a huge issue. Many members of Parliament have campaigned on it. Many charities, such as the RNIB, have campaigned on this, and Guide Dogs UK. Particularly around sort of wanting to introduce a ban on pavement parking. And this has been introduced in London and in Scotland. But what we wanted to do was to basically, across these 4 areas, so looking at bins, pavement parking, street and roadworks, and then also street furniture, we worked on the premise that many of those in local government would understand this issue and perhaps would want to be able to solve it. Many people want to do more in terms of access. They want to be able to improve things and to make things better for disabled people. But clearly there are blockages. There are reasons why this can't happen. So what we wanted to do is to really identify what those barriers were so that we could find solutions for government and then also for national government and also local government to be able to improve things. So next slide, please. So what we did was we came up with a street transformation execution plan, and we worked, obviously the National Centre of Accessible Transport is based in Coventry. We have contacts there at NCAT already and at the council, and we knew that Coventry, we know from our work that we've done in the West Midlands that Coventry have got a really strong co-production board. So they work really, really strongly with disabled people in Coventry City Council through their Disability Equality Action Partnership. So what we did was we set out 6 interviews with members of the council, so people that are in sort of relevant roles, for example, the head of network management, and that was to identify what the barriers were and what do they need from central government in order to improve things. We engaged with some businesses. This was much more challenging than I thought, I think, given the current climate, but we engaged with some businesses to ask them what their issues were. And then with the disability group, we sort of sought to do some more research about the barriers and what more they need to be able to improve things to make street access sort of work for everybody. So what we did was we produced our blueprint for change, and we used our work with Coventry as something that councils around the whole country can use to be able to use as a blueprint so that they can improve street accessibility. So we had 9 recommendations for local government in there, and we have 3 recommendations for national government. And the idea behind this, we launched it in House of Parliament, is that people can use it, councils can use it across the country to improve street access. And then final slide really quickly is basically the government have introduced, one of our recommendations was around changing the Traffic Management Act to be able to give local authorities the power to deal with this. And the government did bring that in January. So I think we're looking for partners to be able to work with us to take this to the next level and sort of test our recommendations and monitor the impact of this government change, but then test our recommendations with councils and businesses across the country.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Chloe, and thank you very much to all those innovators to bring so great innovation to the market. And now I'll pass on to my colleague, Jamie, who will be giving some tips for innovators that are new to the accessibility in transport sector.
Thanks, Isabel. So I'm Jamie Chan-Pensley. I'm Head of Strategic Portfolio for Transport at Connected Places Catapult. I'm also a member of the NCAT board and the leadership team. I'm a Chinese man, and I've got short cropped hair and black glasses, wearing a check shirt, and I also have a blurred background. So, I mean, you've just listened to all of those guys. They, and what I'm going to do is pretty much summarize a lot of those challenges that they've had, so the stakeholders they've had to engage with. And a few sort of tips to kind of, and some of the pitfalls to kind of escape, really. And when we kind of think about accessibility in transport, there's often a real focus around compliance. So there's this focus around sort of the ramps, the lifts, the announcements and the standards. But we need to kind of step away from that and look at accessibility not just as not a tick box exercise, but as an overall systems challenge. And within that system, you got to think of the human as part of that system, and that's really imperative, and it's also a stakeholder kind of challenge. So I want to expand a bit on that stakeholder landscape, who matters, why, how they interact, but I also want to sort of share that practical guidance, especially those of you that might be new to transport or transport accessibility, and then also how to kind of navigate the complexity and engage with the right audiences and crucially designing with the social model of accessibility at the core. So next slide, please. So when we think about transport accessibility, it really sits at that intersection of infrastructure, services, policy, funding, and that lived experience. And at a high level, I suppose you could look at the stakeholder landscape in sort of 5 main areas, and all of those have a different kind of level of influence and whether or not an innovation reaches that sort of real world potential. So the first one, as you've heard from Emma and a number of others, is that end users and lived experience voices. Those really are the primary experts in the field. They're not just a stakeholder group that you consult at the end, but they're the ones that know the challenges, they know the pitfalls, they know the best practices, they know the workarounds, and they'll help get your solution immediately on track. Across the UK, this can also be displayed through DPOs or disabled people's organisations, user panels, expert groups, community groups, evidence centres and research programmes grounded in lived experience. And the key shift we need to take here is from the language of testing on to designing with. And that directly reflects that social model of disability, where people are disabled by those barriers in the system and not by their impairment. So look to engage these guys from the very beginning. Next bullet, please. This is now the system owners and the operators, and they run the system day to day. So if you think of those organisations, the ones around the different domains, the rail operators, the local transport authorities, highway authorities, airports, stations, ports, asset owners and maintainers. And they're the ones that they really care about safety, reliability, but also like the uptime of the asset that they've got and the systems that they're running. So they have a big focus, and as Emma sort of alluded to, it's about that cost, but then risk, and then the operational impact that might have. And then they'll also look at interoperability, compatibility with existing assets and their processes that they run. So this is where innovations can fail, when they look solely at that user problem, but then ignore that overall operational reality that these organizations still have to function within. Next bullet point, please. So that's policy, regulation and standards bodies, and this is about influencing and shaping the ecosystem. If you look at those stakeholders, it's often around national government and the agencies, regulators, inspectorates, and then standards and assurance sort of frameworks. And what these actors do is they shape what must be done, what can't be done, but then also increasingly sort of what should be prioritized. And we're seeing in the sector that accessibility's moved from that nice to have box to having an explicit policy focus. So it's really important that innovators understand the policy context that they're starting to enter, as it can be quite complex. Next bullet, please. Funders, commissioners, and innovation agencies. So this is a route to market opportunity for many early stage solutions. So you've heard about success on some of these innovation competitions, but also leading to pilots and demonstrators and the scaling programs like Scaling Innovation. And I think one shift that we've noticed crucially around the funding is that the challenges are more evidence-led, and it's got a clear route, wanting to see clear routes to adoption and also demonstrable social impact. So it's not just a kind of a theoretical competition or theoretical solution that or problem they're trying to solve. It's got some real clear evidence base, and if you don't understand how that your solution plugs into the real commissioning pathway, your solution will stall. Next bullet, please. So then reflecting on the wider ecosystem. So this is the overall glue that binds. So think about the academics, the professional institutions, industry groups, technology suppliers. That's the connective tissue of the system. They have an influence around the sort of skills and capabilities that are available. They can hold or direct you to the sort of evidence that you require or the standards, but they can also be excellent for collaboration and for scaling. So it's worth thinking of transport accessibility in the whole, not as a single biomarket, but as an overall ecosystem play. How do you connect all of these different elements together? Next slide, please. So in terms of this practical guidance, some ways of approaching this. A lot of innovators don't fail because the idea is overall bad, but maybe they've misread the system that they're entering into. So these practice principles sort of distinguish those that land and those that don't. So starting with the barrier and not the technology. Accessibility innovation starts by asking, what is that barrier that's created by the system? Who are the types of end users who experience it, and where does it happen in a journey? If your statement doesn't reflect the social model of disability, you'll always end up retrofitting inclusion later. And as Emma's alluded to, it always becomes more costly, more ineffective, any type of backward integration. Next bullet, please. Design for journeys and not touch points. So look at it more holistically. Disabled people don't experience transport in silos. You know, a journey starts before the station. It's in the decision-making process. They think about where to go, what transport mode to take, what route they're going to go on. That then continues through to the interchange, the other transport modes and the infrastructure that they engage with. And it only really works if every link functions. So solutions that optimize just for a single touch point, but then worsen other ones, will increase overall exclusion. And the impact of that is that some users just will refuse to travel entirely from an unpleasant experience. So you've got to ask yourself, when you're bringing your solution to light, what does success look like across the whole journey? Next one, please. So engage the system owners early, even if it's uncomfortable. So many innovators delay engaging operators because they fear the procurement complexity. There's long decision cycles, and there's also that overall kind of aversion to risk. These conversations are challenging, or can be challenging, but having it early on will help you to understand what you're working with. It can help to kind of detail what can be realistically trialed. It can tell you what sort of data or assurance is required and where your pilot might sit overall. And it's not about just getting permission, it's having a good alignment with those people as well. Principle 4. So building evidence alongside your solution. So, and I think Freddie gave a really nice example of this, but in transport, you know, evidence travels faster than enthusiasm. So strong accessibility innovations, the successful ones, they build that user-led evidence. They have operational insight and the early indicators of economic and social value. And as you see there on that sign that I put up, you know, it's about how foundational accessibility is driving return on investment. It's not an afterthought, it's the starting point. And this is critical for scaling. So when accessibility is there, you know, it can be competing with cost, capacity, and delivery pressures. So it's really important to have that evidence. And, you know, we've had some really lovely examples today of where they've been doing that. So the final of my practical principles is showcasing accessibility as a value creator. You know, it's not a constraint. Think of how this is, again, a holistic pattern that you can look at all those value spaces and value opportunities. So the strongest innovators always frame accessibility as a system improvement. You know, it shows the benefits that it's for many. You talk about usability, it's for the many and not for just some. But then also demonstrate how inclusive design, it reduces the risk, it reduces retrofit costs, it reduces overall costs. And overall, accessibility done well improves the whole network, and it's a really powerful message to have to give to decision makers. So next slide, please. So before I close, sort of the common mistakes we see can be around designing for disabled people instead of with them. So involving people with lived experience from the problem definition stage should be done, and not just at the solution testing. Recognize that disabled people are experts in the system and not just users of it. Design around the barriers created by the transport system in line with the social model of disability and not around assumptions about impairments. The risk of getting this wrong is high. You can unintentionally shift responsibility onto that individual. So we're talking about more apps, more planning, more effort, rather than actually designing out the barriers from the system itself. So innovators that succeed, they treat co-design as a core infrastructure, not just a nice to have. So my second one is treating regulation as an afterthought. So innovators often see regulation as something to deal with later, a box to tick before procurement, or it puts the brakes on creativity. And in reality, regulation shapes, you know, what can be deployed, where the responsibility sits, how risk is assessed, how decisions get signed off. Treating regulation as an afterthought leads to solutions that can't be approved, procured, or scaled, even if they do perform well technically or test positively with users. So that's really important to consider. And my last one is assuming that pilots mean adoption. Pilots are designed to test feasibility or the value in a limited setting. Adoption, on the other hand, it requires that operational buy-in, clear ownership, budget alignment, thinking about maintenance, training, and support, and a route through to that procurement stage. Many pilots fail to scale because no one owns the solution once the pilot ends, Operators weren't involved early enough, costs and responsibilities weren't clear, or the pilot didn't align with how decisions are actually made. So in summary, if you design without disabled people, you ignore regulation, or you assume pilots equal progress, the system will quietly reject your solution. So if you avoid them, you'll significantly improve your chances of impact. So in closing, the future, next slide please, the future of accessible transport isn't about individual innovations, it's about changing how this system works. You know, for innovators entering this space, success means embedding that social model of accessibility from day one in what you do, navigating that stakeholder landscape with clear intention, and then can build solutions that can practically scale with the real world transport systems. And that's how we'll all move from those really promising good ideas to something with a lasting impact. So thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Jamie, for this insightful session. So if you have any questions to any of the speakers or innovators, please ask it in the Q&A with the Q&A function, and then we can address them just after the presentation about TRIG. Okay, so what is TRIG? So TRIG is an innovation funding program supporting bold early-stage ideas aiming to solve real-world transport challenges. So through TRIG, we support innovators with different support mechanism, and it's a long-standing collaboration between Department for Transport and Connected Places Catapult that delivers the program. So we support any innovators, so startups, scale-up, large businesses, academic, local government, and charities. And we create this vibrant community of innovators that we support not only during the program, but also after the program through the alumni community. So you'll see on the next slide how TRIG fit into your innovation journey. So TRIG is designed for projects that are at TRL 2 to 4 at the start of the program, meaning that the technology should be, the technology or the concept should be formulated, but then it's pre-testing. So it should be at the end of the program delivering a proof of concept, a small scale prototype, or you can validate it in a relevant environment. But at the start of the program, again, the technology should be between TRL 2 to 4. And then, as mentioned, TRIG is not only during the program, but also we are building a community of innovators that we support throughout with a lot of engagement activity that I will present on the next slide. So we already benchmark TRIG, and we realized that TRIG is unique. And it's not only about the funding, which is a £45,000, 100% funded. So it doesn't require any matching fund, but obviously we accept a bigger project with some matching funding. But TRIG is about creating engagement with DFT policy experts, policy lead, but also creating engagement with industry. So we have a monthly meeting between DFT and the innovators that are part of the TRIG program. And also we have some activities to raise the profile of our innovators through some pitch events, some articles, and also we organize a showcase event at the end of the program every time. We also provide some learning sessions, so we organize a cohort level session every 3 months, but we are also developing some more one-to-one mentoring scheme for a few selected entrepreneurs that are part of the program. And again, the value of TRIG is also the community of 470 projects that we supported throughout the last 11 years. Next slide, please. So the TRIG competition is now open until the 5th of June. So we just opened on Monday. And we are looking to support 53 innovative projects aligned with one of the challenges below. So the first challenge is maritime decarbonization. We've got freight innovation, critical technology, digital twins, and open call. So we'll provide a bit more information about the scope during the webinar that you can register for Tuesday, 3 p.m. We will have all the DFT change owner presenting the scope, but also how it aligns with the DFT priorities and strategy. So if you want to apply, you had the QR code on the previous slide, so you can scan and join and go to the open call page to start your application. Again, you'll have more information on the webinar. We worked quite hard in the background to make sure that the process is very accessible and easy. The form is very easy to complete. It's very short application, so I really encourage you to apply. So next slide. So this is the third session of a series of the future of transport. So again, we had one session on Tuesday and 2 sessions today. It's very important for us to receive some feedback to see how we can improve the session. The next one will be in July, and we'll communicate about it in due time. But yes, I encourage you to complete this feedback survey to make sure that we are designing those sessions for everyone. I really like to thank our panel for all the great insight, and thank you again for our innovators to make a difference. I don't see any question in the chat unless I can't see any questions. Just have some great link about procurement in the chat as well. So thank you for sharing those information. We've got the open call page that is also shared in the chat, and ideas of innovators also shared what they are developing. I don't know if you have any. So yes, the slides will be shared as well as the recording. So we will be sharing those in the follow-up email that you will receive. Okay, I think there's no more question. So we can wrap up the session. Thank you again, everyone. Thank you for joining, and I hope you enjoyed the session. Thank you.